Hey friends, Dr. Motley here with the Ancient Health Podcast, and let's talk about the spleen. The spleen is a major lymph organ, and it has many functions. It is a small organ that sits right beside your stomach. They're basically neighbors, and it helps you with many functions, such as digestion, immune building, filtering out your lymph nodes, also with the production of platelets to help you wound repair. It's a big wound repair organ. It is classified with other lymph tissue, just like the appendix and the thymus gland. So it's a small organ that has many functions, and its function determines the health of the whole body. Remember, every organ is intertwined. It's correlated in Chinese medicine. And as we're going into this late summer, going into the fall, every season in Chinese medicine is correlated and connected to an organ system. This late summertime is connected to the stomach and spleen. They are known as the earth element organs. Why? Because the organs mimic the characteristics of the environment, of the earth, as we shift seasons. So the earth is getting prepared. It's getting prepared to absorb the fallen leaves, all the decaying matter that has fallen off the trees or that's on the ground. The earth is ready to absorb. It's ready to be rejuvenated. So the characteristics of stomach and spleen is there to help you absorb nutrients for you to get rejuvenated. So every part of the year, an organ system has to have some special attention so that if you heal those organs well, the rest of the year, the rest of the seasons stay in balance. So this time of year, we need to work on rejuvenation. Now, we're not only going to talk about it physically and structurally in the immune system, but we also want to talk about it with the emotions, which we're going to wrap up with in this podcast. So let's start off with the basics. The spleen. It's a major lymph tissue organ. It sits right beside the stomach, right beside the pancreas. It's on the left side of the body underneath the ribs. Now, the function of the spleen is to help filter your lymph nodes. So whatever nasty toxins are in your bloodstream or in your muscle tissue or in your joints, they can be spilled over into the lymph glands. So let's say your capillaries, your muscles have an excess toxins of mold or any type of bacteria. Those toxins can actually leak out into the space between the cells in your body. And then your lymph glands will pick it up. So it's then taken through to the lymphocytes or the lymph glands or lymph nodes. And there is where the lymphocytes, the little cells, kill off the infections, tag them with a little Post-it note and say, hey, you're a virus. And next time you come into this area, I'm going to remember who you are, and we're going to go after you and be able to eliminate you in a safe, efficient way. That fluid is transported eventually up into the spleen. And the spleen acts as a major filter, just like your appendix and just like your thymus gland. Now, what happens to the spleen when it gets overloaded with too many toxins? Let's say your lymph glands have too many toxicities within them, from Epstein-Barr virus, Lyme disease, parasites, chronic strep, chronic staph. If you've experienced these infections and you feel like you're chronically sick or chronically overloaded, and you feel that your lymph glands actually get swollen or have bumps or have nodules, it's because many times infections such as Lyme disease or parasites, even strep, has been known to take root in the lymph nodes, in the lymph glands, combine certain B lymphocytes around themselves, and use your own cells to protect the infection. They can trick your immune system. So the ability of the spleen to filter out the toxins and infections is very important. So you have to have a clean spleen, not only to have clean lymph nodes, but to clarify your muscles and your ligaments and your joints, but also to clean your blood. If you have a dirty spleen or infected spleen, you're going to have a hard time cleaning out your blood. Furthermore, if the spleen ever has nodules or bumps or swelling, or if you have splenomegaly or you have swollen legs, that can indicate to me that the infections could overwhelm the lymph nodes. And what can occur is that there's an exchange between your bloodstream and your lymph. And many times the toxicities and the infections can jump over into the bloodstream and travel to the heart. Lymph tissue or lymph fluid can actually be oxidized within the lungs, so that it actually becomes plasma. The body uses lymph fluid. It recycles it. So your lymph fluid can be turned into oxidized plasma, which is your blood, and it can actually be filtered out by the kidneys. But the important thing I want you to know is this. If you've ever had mono, if you've ever had chronic strep, if you ever had chronic staph infections, and if you've ever had those swollen areas behind your ears or underneath your throat or behind your neck or even in your armpits, those are all indications of swollen lymph glands, and that is showing me as a practitioner that the spleen is probably infected or probably overwhelmed. It can't do the job it wants to because there's too many infections. So we have to clean it out. We have to give it some TLC. So we see the importance of the spleen. The other thing it does is it actually creates platelets. It acts as a reservoir for platelets. Now, let me readjust my statement. Your bone marrow will create platelets. Platelets are the small red blood cells that actually help mend up vessels that are broken. It helps with hemorrhaging. It helps with periods that go too long. It helps with brain bleeds or aneurysms. Your body uses platelets to actually patch up the injuries. Now, your platelets act as a reservoir. So the platelets store in there, and whenever you have an injury, it mobilizes the platelets to go to the area to actually help you with mending up the injury. That's the second function. The other function is that along with the pancreas, the spleen helps with modifying the amount of enzymes that are basically in your mouth. So let's say you eat certain amounts of sugars or carbs or starches or even certain types of proteins. Your pancreas and your spleen aid in the amount of enzymes that are pushed into the stomach and also with modulating the amount of enzymes that are in the mouth, such as amylase to break down sugars. So the health of the spleen will actually determine the health of your digestion. Whenever you eat the food, it signals from the brain through the hormonal system down to the gallbladder, stomach, and spleen to produce certain types of enzymes for you to digest them. But what happens if you've had mono or strep? What happens if you've ever had too much infections in the body or you've had a bleeding wound? Will your digestion be up to par? Not necessarily. So you have to have a healthy spleen and pancreas to actually help your blood sugar levels. So you have to have enzymes, immune system, and wound repair acting in the same manner, the same balance to create an overall balanced system. That's how important the spleen is. Many times individuals get the spleen removed, just like the gallbladder, and they think, well, I guess I didn't need it because it was overly infected. It's because the spleen wasn't nourished. So we want to work on a few things to help you with the season change. And when we talk about cleaning out the spleen and the lymph nodes, remember, we're also going to clean out the stomach. The stomach is a paired meridian. So if you ever have an infection in the stomach, it can transfer to the spleen. And if you ever had something in the spleen, it go to the stomach, like E. coli or H. pylori or even a strep or a staph bacteria. This is not to be negative. What this is trying to say is that we want to bring balance back so that not only will your spleen be healed, but your stomach digestion as well. So, one of the main things I look for in Chinese medicine when we talk about spleen health as we go into the late summer is a dry mouth. Anytime you have a dry mouth, or if you don't produce enough saliva, or if you overproduce saliva, that's a big indication of spleen dysfunction. Another thing you need to look for is white spots in the nails. That can show you that there's spleen dysfunction. Now, around the eyes, around this area on the temples, that area, if you get breakouts, pimples, rashes, or you get swollen areas around the temples, that's a big indication that there could be spleen imbalance or spleen infections and even injury. Now, when the spleen is stressed, it's going to show you these signs and symptoms. Another thing I like to look for is the spleen 21. Many times individuals will have pain around the rib cage. This is spleen 21 right here. And that area right there is a major meeting point for all the meridians of the yin in the upper body, which are the solid organs. But this is what it means. It's a major point for your immune system. So you could have rib pain at spleen 21. You could also have pain in the hips because the spleen meridian goes right down through the hips. You could have pain on the inside of the knee. And this is another big indication. You could have bunions or a big swollen area on the big knuckle of the toe, or even gout on the inside of the big toe. Those are all related to spleen dysfunction. Blood sugar, diabetes, guarantee you need to get your spleen worked on, fixed. Get checked and see if the spleen is swollen or if there's imbalanced spleen blood levels. So you want to look at those signs and symptoms on the face. I think with the stomach paired with the spleen, another thing you need to look for is chronic sinus infections. Stomach 1 is right here, and that's paired to the spleen. If you have chronic sinus infections, it indicates to me that the stomach and spleen are infected. So we know that we have sinuses, temporal breakouts, rib pain. You could have hip, inside of the knee, even bunions. These are all big indications of spleen imbalance. Another big issue that I like to look into is, again, we talked about the mono and the chronic strep, but emotionally. Emotionally, if you guys worry all the time, if you experience worry or pensiveness, if you feel like you're always on edge, if you're caring more about others than yourself, overcare and overconcern are an emotional, psychological program that could have been instilled from parents or generational lines or even from your family or friends that you've mimicked, and it's created such a huge program in your neurology that you have done what? You've trained your body not to nourish itself, not to rejuvenate. Other people are more important than I am. Now, we care for others. We love others. We want to make sure that others are taken care of. I understand that. But when you get to a point where other people's health or well-being are making you deplete your own health or care, that's when you have to draw a boundary, because you have to stay in good health to do what? Help others. So there is a miscommunication between the brain and the body that is saying something to the effect of, hey, I'm not that important. Other people are more important than I am. So I'm going to spend more time trying to help others heal than myself heal. So body, don't take all the necessary steps to heal. Don't take all the necessary steps to heal my wounds. What does the spleen do? The spleen is basically there to be a reservoir for platelets and help with platelet distribution. And if you've ever had problems with, let's say, hemorrhaging or bad periods or long menstrual cycles, if you've ever had an aneurysm, if you've ever had blood transfusion, if you're on blood thinners, these are all conflicts within the body. These are bleeding conflicts. Now, what that means is that if you've ever had an emotional trauma program that instilled in you that other people well-being is more important than you actually being healthy, then you get into a self-devaluation conflict. So you literally can say, well, other people are more important, so I'm going to take all my energy and make sure that somebody else is taken care of. Now, what this signals to the body in one aspect, guys, I know there's many aspects of psychology and emotions, but in Chinese medicine is that the platelets, instead of roaming around in the peripheral system to go patch up an artery or an area of injury, it will actually go back to the spleen. And the spleen will actually cause necrotizing. It will actually deteriorate its own outer surface of the spleen. And what happens is you have these little patches of deteriorated tissue, and the platelets go and they patch up those areas. It's drawn back to the spleen. And so what happens is the spleen has a small reservoir of platelets. All the while, you could have an injury in the periphery, in your peripheral areas, somewhere distant. But the reason I'm saying this is because if you continue to have bleeding issues or bad cycles, and there's infections in the spleen, if there's old emotions of trauma, if there's something of that sort that's roaming in your neurology, it could signal to your body that you're devalued. I don't need to be mended. Other people need to be more mended than I am. So we want to make sure that we see that we get the devaluation aspect out of the life, because we need replenishment. We need to be valued, and we need to have enough absorption, and we have to have enough reward from the summer's growth patterns, like growing in the plant life. You want to be able to have reward, so you need to be replenished to help others. The spleen and the stomach are there not to be in a selfish manner, guys. It is not selfish for you to be replenished, to have some form of nutrient absorption or some form of joy that you actually sing about. That's the number one voice of the spleen stomach, is to have singing and to feel the warmth of the late summer. But it's there for you to be able to help others in a nice, bountiful way, but also with good boundaries and good limits. So you're able to take care of others while you're taking care of yourself. You're able to do it with joy and with happiness. So when we look at our lives and if we devalue ourselves, we also want to make sure that we do certain forms of emotional techniques to start it off. I love acupuncture. Acupuncture is awesome. It is a good way to balance the spleen in the stomach. In fact, if you have a chronically stomach spleen imbalance, acupuncture is the way to go. I also like at-home therapy, where you can take tapping. I usually ask my patients to do some form of acupuncture tapping, which is also known as EFT. But what is happening is that you can learn at home from websites like emofree.com, is how to tap certain points, like the stomach one or the spleen points that are spleen 21, spleen 1 on the toe. What they teach you are certain points which are the beginning and ending points of certain meridians. The point is, each meridian is connected to the next. If you tap the beginning or ending point, what you're doing is opening up the points just by tapping. You can rub the points too, but you're opening up the points to allow electricity to flow to the next point. So what they're doing in EFT or tapping techniques is essentially just trying to create a complete movement, a circle of energy, of electricity that's flowing through the whole system. Why is it so important? Blood flows where electricity is. Electricity flows where the blood is. Blood is very electrically active. It has lots of polarity in the blood. So in Chinese medicine, it's all about circulation. Where you circulate the energy, the electricity, the blood will circulate, and vice versa. So when you start to tap on a point, and the system would say, think of a statement. Even though I take care of others more than I take care of myself, I unconditionally love myself and will learn to start taking care of myself more. You can do something of that sort, but if you don't, you just need to tap the points. Research has shown just through tapping the beginning and ending points, which you can learn, they're good ways just to open up the energy system. So you can use EFT tapping or acupuncture. You can do it. You don't have to make it a regimen. You can just tap points. Like if you just want to work on the spleen, I would tap the spleen 21 around the lower ribs and also up on the shoulders. But you can learn certain points on EFT to tap, not being overwhelmed with it. So EFT tapping. I also like DNRS. It's a desensitization for neurological reset. DNRS is a really good technique that you can learn from home, and I like it because it actually trains you to be able to remember or recognize when you go through an old traumatic event. One of the main things we don't do is recognize when we're going through the old trauma. Please research this type of technique because I've seen many of my patients do so well with it that many of their ailments have left because they just brought to awareness in the brain the problem, and that reset the brain, and the neurological, psychological connection to the organs, let's say the spleen, is healed. And one more, I don't want to overwhelm you guys. That's another technique. I like neurofeedback. Neurofeedback is lens therapy, L-E-N-S. I will always talk about this, but this is a technique that actually goes in and helps with resetting the electrical flow within the brain. And if you can reset the electrical flow in the brain and get it healthy on the surface of the brain, many of the internal traumas that are deep in the brain will actually go to the surface. So lens therapy, you can use many of these options, but I want you to know that emotions are so important when it comes to the spleen that you will see your spleen function get better. You'll start to see that you'll actually filter more of your lymph, and you will also see that you will get rid of so many of your lumps if you keep working with the emotions and with a few of the tips I'm about to mention. So please start the process of recognizing if you're completely worried, always pensive, always wary, if you're always over-concerned, if you have a schedule that literally is about others all the time, but you're not taking care of yourself, that's what you need to recognize. It's okay to take care of others, but you have to have some rejuvenation. You need to be able to prepare your body like the earth to receive. If you don't learn how to receive, if you're not able to take a compliment, if you're not able to take a gift, if you're not able to take a pat on the back, this tells me that the spleen and the stomach are out of alignment, out of balance. You want to be able to receive a gift. If somebody says, here you go, this is just me giving you this, say thank you. I receive that. I appreciate that. Start to replenish. The next thing we want to look into is the actual health of the immune system. I always recommend that with the changing season, you want to be able to increase your vitamin D because you're going to get ready for fall. Vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin K. If you're on blood thinners, ask your doctor about taking vitamin K. But those 4 vitamins are essential to help with your vitamin D levels to be in proper balance. Between 70 to 80 is a really good level to help you with your immune balance. Additionally, with the spleen, I like to recommend My Community by Host Defense. I don't know if it's going to take this in balance, but My Community by Host Defense. It is by Host Defense, but it's a comprehensive immune support. It's a blend of mushrooms that you can take 1 in the morning or 1 at night. It's very strong for me. I only have to take 1 a day, but you will start to see that it'll increase your immune, strengthen your spleen, and actually help you with chronic viruses such as Epstein-Barr or strep or staph bacteria. I also like to use Vital Guard Supreme. Vital Guard Supreme is a really good supplement from Supreme Nutrition products. And there's a link in my bio on Instagram. But this chrysanthemum is very good as an antimicrobial. It's a general antimicrobial. It strengthens the kidneys and the spleen. It helps bring power back in the body. And it's actually really good for pregnant ladies, for children. It's safe. So chrysanthemum is a really good supplement to use. I also like Aspire. Aspire has a really good biodefense system. Now, the biodefense system, it has a small amount of the elderberry fruit, but I like it because it's really gentle. Now, this right here is made by my good friend Marty, and he has a great line. The link's in the bio. Again, not trying to sell anything, but this company, Aspire, has an immune formula that's really, really solid. But the thing I like about this is if you've ever had issues with neurological conditions such as autism or being on the spectrum, or if you've ever had any type of OCD or ADD, this company really takes that into consideration. So Aspire is really formulated to help individuals with neurological conditions. So if you find that in yourself, your children, look into the Biodefense by Aspire. It's a really good immune builder, and it'll help the spleen. That's another option. I really love to use 2 of my top favorites is Melia Supreme, Melia Supreme, which is neem. And I really love to use goldenthread Supreme, which is Chinese coptis. These are very antimicrobial. They will help kill off fungus, mold, yeast, bacteria, even parasites. But the thing is, I always love to start all of these in slow amounts because you don't want to overload the system. These all have shown to help with the spleen. You don't use all of them. Find the one that you see that are the most attractive to you, that you gravitate towards, because there's a resonance between you and the supplement. And when you do, you'll take one day and see how you feel. You can actually skip a day, but I say start with 1, skip a day, do it the next day, and do 4 in the first week. If you feel pretty good, if you feel like your bowel movements are staying steady, if your sleep's actually improved, if your energy is staying steady or it's actually improved, this is a good supplement. Then go to 1 every day for the second week. And if that goes well, go to 2 a day. That's my general rule. So you don't ever want it to disrupt your sleep or make you feel like you're constipated or make your energy levels go low. If you detoxify too quickly, yes, it could be a good supplement, but you could be taking too much or it's not the right one for you. These are good options. So write that down. Melia Supreme, goldenthread Supreme, My Community by Host Defense, Vital Guard Supreme, and the Aspire Biodefense. Now, to top it all off, my good friend Dr. Isaac Elias, a gentle, great soul, he has a great product called Pectasol. And Pectasol is citrus pectin, and it basically decreases all inflammation in the body. Research has shown it. I'm telling you, it is a great product. So whenever I look into giving somebody something to reduce their inflammation while they're helping their immune system out, I look at Pectasol and get 2 of those a day. And I'm telling you, I've seen people's skin change, their lung health change, their overall mentality change, their brain fog leave. These are great products to help with the spleen. And remember, you can do bounding in the morning, 4 to 7 to 10 minutes of bounding on a trampoline or doing jumping jacks to help the lymph move. Also, you get a vibration plate. Start off a low level, do 5 minutes in the first part of the day to get the lymph to flow. These are really good exercises. And I then ask a patient if they want to do a red light therapy like BioLight or TheraSage have really good infrared lights in small amounts, starting slow. 3 to 4 minutes a day, 4 or 5 days a week to get the lymph flowing. If you have a congested area, shine the light on that area or go into one of the saunas that would help with infrared technique. Also, guys, One of the things I like to add in with the supplements, with the infrared, and with the emotional techniques is singing with the spleen. Literally practice singing and humming. This is the voice of the spleen and the stomach. When you practice singing, or if you feel like you can't sing anymore, that shows that your spleen's tired. You need to sing more. Find the good music, sing more, be able to receive more, and get your body set up for rejuvenation to receive. That way, as you receive more nutrients in the late summer, as the fall comes and you're ready to pick up all those nutrients, it means that you're ready to receive. And then as winter comes, you're going to be able to take all that information and stew on it during the winter and grow when the spring comes the next year. That's how it all works. The spleen, so important, guys. I hope that you guys take this information. Please, if you've ever had old mono or Lyme disease or parasites, please take this to heart. Check into these supplements. If you guys have any more questions or comments, please put it on our YouTube channel. Give us some signals there on the Instagram. If you have additional questions, I'm at Dr. Motley, spelled out on Instagram. I do extra videos there. If you guys need any information, you can send me messages and see if we can answer your questions. All right, guys, I hope you guys have a blessed day. Take it easy. From all of us here at the Ancient Health Podcast, enjoy this day and be blessed.